Welcome back to session 53. Um, through the, I guess, 52 sessions so far, we have been talking about, a lot, extensively, about basically, the standards or the measurement, basically to tell better from not so good, long from short, or longer from shorter. And basically, better, worse, ugly, uh, beautiful, basically in eyes of beholders, right? It's all comparative. And in this session, I want to, give a little emphasis on all the different subset of standards for measurement. Basically, the bottom line is you are judging, right? Uh, to you know judge with the standard somehow recognized among certain crowds at a certain time. But the analogy I'm going to offer today, as my own personal take, would hopefully, I guess, get you to at least to think about, if that makes sense. All these 52 previous sessions, what I have been basically tossing out there to entertain your thought to see if this, line of thought of Taoism teaching actually makes sense to you, right? And here we go. So for those are, I guess, to having been, I guess, undertaking more serious interest into art, a lot of practice, we all know there's this saying of outsiders art, which is referring to the fact that you did not come through, master degree or undergraduate degree in art practice, specifically studio arts for visual arts, right? And but then when you talk to the people who have been practicing visual arts as their profession, talk to them, and they will all, basically, I guess, agree with you. All their professional life, they struggle, they fight to get out of the paradigm that their training left them and confined them to that little box, right? So then you ask the question, wait, what's the whole point? If all your professional life you're trying to get out of that box, then your training put you in there in the first place. The first answer typically would be, oh yeah, because that's required, for your little bio or CV as an artist. Otherwise, hey, you can't fetch a price. The buyers, they pay, this is a absolute must, in most cases. Otherwise, you're an outsider. Okay. So what does that tell you? Is there a standard? Yeah, somehow there is. Hey, what's the measurement? That degree there, master degree or undergraduate degree in visual arts, right? Okay. And then in your professional practice, you try to get out of it. Only when you try to land a job, or, in most cases, at least in America, you can't really find a job that's, an artist job with this artist, degree, or even more is trying to find a job with, that is not art job, but with a, degree in art. So there's dilemma. So why do you, it's like you spend lots of time and money to get a degree, and then the rest of the time in your lifetime, you really try to, get out of that little box that, they put you into. A confusing, life reality, isn't it? At least for the visual artist. I personally do not have that problem. Why is that? I was never in that box. Okay, so I have the freedom. The reason I have that freedom is I don't have to rely on the art degree to get a job. And I do know a lot of artists who cannot get a job with that art degree. And then the rest is up to you. Basically, you want to get recognized, you want to go to an art gallery anywhere, at least in the United States. The first question they ask you, of course, they will look at your artworks, someday. But the first question would be, what is your degree? Where did you get that degree? Okay, as if if I'm an artist, my talent's only gonna be validated, verified, by an art degree. Whereas I know a lot of people won't agree with me on this one. In the right academic program, especially, I'm gonna say it, especially in China, a lot of academic training programs did absolutely nothing other than destroy the talents and originality of the future artists with all those, sheer technical training. I'm not against training at all, okay? But it's the approach you cultivate the artistic mind. It's the mindset first. That's how I taught my students in my studio in Houston. So I totally disagree on the typical and traditional approach of the Chinese art education since Xu Beihong, which was basically back in, from the 1930s, 40s, all the way through the Red China till today. A little bit of change here and there, but typically it's still the same. So anyway, that we're talking about the standards for, set by someone for someone else. And here's one, and I'm sure I'm not alone out here, pretty much defy that, rules set by other people. I don't obey that. In fact, I don't even approve that. So there's your standards there in this, instance. But then let's take another look, somehow, relevant to it, which is, let's talk about architecture, right? So a lot of architecture out there, right? I'm talking about the contemporary, not the historical ones. Obviously, I guess a work of architecture is really to collectively reflect on the times, of this design in terms of economics, politics, a lot of different things, basically, integrated and together, right? So that's the general, environment. And then within that scope, the individual architects, they have their designs, right? But it's not just like in the visual art, which, basically, I guess most people already have this established consensus, which is basically a visual art is a dialogue, speaking through the arrangement of certain symbols, in certain artistic language to convey certain message in context, right? That's between the artist and the viewers or the audience. And of course, not all of them speak in volume to all the audience. Some works for certain subculture, but fail on others. But at least this visual artist have the total control of the output of from his or her own artwork creations. But when it comes to architecture, the architect and their clients, I don't know if they ever really see eye to eye on everything in details at technical level, or even at the philosophical level and the artistic taste, right? So in a lot of cases, the architects and the clients, they all have separately, different statements to make. The architect probably thinking about, I want this piece of architecture to stay there as the landmark, and basically it's something I leave behind myself. It's a great personal statement of who I am and what I am. Whereas the statement made by the client through this piece of, the same piece of architecture, probably trying to tell other people totally different things, delivering total different message. Either, some of those society, some shiny new pennies, the statement would be, whoa, look at me, I've got money. Look at here. It's so splendid, extravaganza, and all that. That's one type of statement, right, from the clients. Or the money has been around for a little bit, and so the statement is trying to show, look, it's not just the money I have a taste. I care about this, I care about that, and all that money piled up is basically pointing to one thing and one thing only. I've got the taste, right? And then you look back at the architect. Maybe, after a couple of decades of the same practice, the architect realized, wait, it's not really about this big statement I make to scream and shout to be seen. It's really about deep down who I am and what I am. And so the statements start to change, right? And then go back to the other side, the client side. The client, maybe, just maybe, the client, after, let's say 2 dozen or 1 dozen of all the different, in America we call custom, what's it called? Custom design or a custom building or a custom whatever. Basically, you pay for an architect to get your own architect design instead of taking, the off-shelf design anywhere to build your new, residential architecture or building or whatever you call it. But now, remember that if it's a residential building that architect designed, eventually people have to move in and live there, right? So imagine a client who has all the financial resources, almost unlimited. Now, however, it came nobody else's business, but basically could afford. So have a few, or even a dozen or 2 dozen, spread around the world. Each one of them has the unique style, but eventually this person, pretty much got tired of all that because, it was the thrill, the excitement at the beginning, and then you moved in or you visited, from time to time, and then you got sick of it because, hey, you keep looking at the same thing. Again, all that uniqueness start to, disappear until some visitors you invited started, offer the compliments, and then you get assured, oh yeah, that was a, good investment, stuff like that. But eventually, whatever it is, or how unique it is for a while. Remember, all the classics used to be, the emerging new thing at one time. So, yeah, it was contemporary, or it was modern, or it was, different. But after you have a few, I never had, okay, because I never even dream of, to be at that stage. But it's just, I'm imagining here, which is basically, of course, in by itself, there's no credit, but I'm imagining after a few of those, in your own possession, added to your asset list, what are you going to look for next? You probably started to think, okay, before I kick the bucket, maybe I want something that is really deep down myself, rather than, whatever the architect, stick it, with me, and I get stuck with it, owning it. Would I want to have something that truly reflects my personality, my thought, instead of having a tombstone somewhere saying, this is, who used to be what and what, blah, blah, blah. Maybe I have a, piece of architecture to truly reflect upon myself loyally. Now that still would be a conflict between what the client is looking for and what the architect is looking for. Let's say both of them are at this stage of pretty matured and at later phase of, their own life stage. Yet, because, they're all different, right? So if this is some like a, mass building, of the same design, people in America, of course, the biggest group, social economic group, is the middle class. So the middle class basically, manage the bank loan, whatever, and then move in, right? To pick between what is, offered as the available and affordable option, then there's no question of that. But now we're talking about those who have the financial resource to decide what would be the last one, or perceivably the last one before, their last day, their last moment. Something that they really like, regardless whatever other, think about it. Because I guess, after all, a lot of people have egos. The architects want to win the award in the prize, know that. And then the people who pay tens of millions of dollars for a piece of architecture, they have their own ego. Because when people, the visitors come and offer their compliments about the taste, about, so they could be proud of themselves. But when all that just fade away, and then, eventually come down to the bottom line, what I am all about, spelled out in my entire life, from my little baby, infant, toddler, all the way to the preschool, the grade school, the, university, and then the entire life. What have I learned, from my upbringing, and then the education and all that. And then eventually I arrived at what thought about human life as I experienced the good, the bad, the up and down, right? So all that, philosophical thought, could that be reflected in one single piece of architecture, for the party, the client who's going to move in, right? As versus an architect already, emerged with the reputation, with the, the money, the financial reward, decide one day I'm going to build one, architecture that is solely just for myself. So not only I have that piece of architecture out there, making a statement, but also I would be the one moving and living there, and to experience, not just, sign the contract and design and build and boom, hand over. So yours. But now, being the architect who designed it, supervised the building, the craftsmanship, now on the receiving end, living in it, I'll bet you it's so different subset of standards to judge, to be judged, basically from the point of view of the architects of all different phases and the point of view of the clients, at all different stages after, different number of, secondary residents here and there all over the country or all over the world. It's all different, right? So who's to say what is good, what is bad for me or for him or for her or for you? It's all different. Why? Because we are different. When it comes to who I am and what I am, we're all different. So this is why there is no common rules that could perfectly govern everybody when it comes to judge or to be judged, right? So the same subject I will repeat, only with different contents in the next session. So until next session, ciao.